What happens when those who enforce the law become the very criminals they claim to judge? When power is abused and justice is manipulated, who will hold them accountable? A woman, dressed simply, walks into the most prestigious courtroom in the country. Laughter follows her. Mockery surrounds her. But by the time she leaves, the entire system will be shaken to its core. Who is she? And why has she come? If you love stories of justice, power, and shocking plot twists, hit that like button, comment your country, and subscribe for more. The grand halls of New York Supreme Court were filled with their usual crowd, attorneys in press suits, officials moving with purpose, and clerks juggling stacks of legal documents. Then she walked in. A black woman, dressed in plain jeans and a fitted navy blue blazer, her curly hair pulled back into a neat bun. She didn't belong. At least, that's what they all thought. A security guard at the entrance stepped in front of her, blocking her path. The court doesn't entertain civilians during high-profile cases, he said, barely glancing at her. You'll have to leave. She didn't move, didn't flinch. A young female attorney, passing by, gave her a mocking glance. Here to protest a verdict? She asked, smirking. This is a high-level courtroom, sweetheart, not a place for complaints. The woman remained silent, only casting a glance around the grand hallway before walking past them, heading straight into the courtroom. The whispers started immediately. Who let her in? Did she just walk past security? She must be lost. Inside, Judge Henry Caldwell, a man in his 60s with a reputation for being ruthless and untouchable, entered the courtroom. Everyone stood in respect. Everyone except her. Judge Caldwell's bushy gray eyebrows lifted slightly as he noticed her. Then, a mocking chuckle escaped his lips. Miss, he said, his voice thick with amusement, I believe you've stumbled into the wrong courtroom. This is the Supreme Court. A few clerks laughed under their breath. A bailiff shook his head, clearly unimpressed. But then, the woman reached into her pocket, pulled out a golden badge, and gently set it on the judge's bench. The laughter died instantly. A detective in the gallery stiffened, his face turning pale. One of the police officers near the witness stand leaned forward, eyes widening. Judge Caldwell's smirk disappeared. The room fell into complete silence. Caldwell narrowed his eyes. What is this? The district attorney, seated at the prosecution table, shot up from his chair, his face drained of color. That's a U.S. Secret Service badge. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. A court clerk stammered under his breath. Why the hell is a USSS agent here? The woman finally spoke, her voice sharp, controlled, and unwavering. I'm here for one reason, she said. She pulled out a thick folder from her blazer and slid it across the desk to the DA. The judge didn't move. The DA hesitated, then opened the folder. Inside? Bank records, transactions, offshore accounts, and at the very top, the name of Judge Henry Caldwell. The judge's face turned stone cold. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. The woman's eyes didn't waver. You, she said, are under investigation. A ripple of shock moved through the courtroom. Before Caldwell could react, the courtroom doors burst open. A team of FBI agents stormed in, their suits crisp, their movements precise and deliberate. The lead agent stepped forward, holding up a federal warrant. Judge Henry Caldwell, he said, his voice booming across the courtroom, you are under arrest for bribery, corruption, and obstruction of justice. Caldwell's face twisted in fury. You can't do this, he roared. I'm the law in this courtroom. The FBI agents didn't flinch. The woman picked up her badge, sliding it back into her pocket. Not anymore, she murmured. As the agents moved in, the courtroom erupted in chaos. Lawyers whispered in disbelief. Court officials fumbled to process what they had just seen. And Judge Caldwell? He struggled, yelling, protesting. But in the end, the handcuffs clicked shut. And the woman? She simply turned on her heel and walked out. No more words. No more explanations. Just justice. The sound of metal cuffs locking around Judge Henry Caldwell's wrists echoed through the grand courtroom. For the first time in his career, he wasn't the one passing judgment. He was the one being judged. The team of FBI agents moved in swiftly, surrounding him. The lead agent, Special Agent Tom Carter, stepped forward, his expression cold and professional. Henry Caldwell, he announced, reading from the federal warrant in his hand, you are under arrest for bribery, corruption, and obstruction of justice. Caldwell's face twisted with rage. This is a joke, he spat, struggling against the agents. I am a Supreme Court judge. I demand to speak to it. Save it for your lawyer, Agent Carter interrupted, gripping Caldwell's arm. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Lawyers whispered frantically. Court clerks stared in stunned disbelief. The district attorney, Richard Lawson, stood frozen at the prosecution's table, his face pale as death. Denise Parker, the woman in the simple blazer, the woman who had walked into this courtroom as a nobody just moments ago. She watched it all unfold with quiet, calculated precision. Judge Caldwell turned toward her, eyes burning with fury. "You set me up," he growled. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Denise took a slow step forward, her eyes locked onto his. "You already know," she said simply. She pulled out her badge again, flipping it open just enough for Caldwell to see the letters USSS, United States Secret Service. Caldwell's entire body stiffened. A ripple of shock spread through the onlookers. The whispers began again. "She's a Secret Service agent? What the hell is the USSS doing in a case like this? This isn't just a corruption trial. This is bigger." The district attorney seemed to regain his senses, snapping his gaze toward Denise. "Agent Parker," he said carefully, choosing his words, "what exactly is happening here?" Denise turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "I'm here on official orders from the federal government," she said. She pulled out another file from her pocket and tossed it onto the prosecution's desk. Inside that folder is proof that Judge Caldwell has been selling verdicts to the highest bidder for over a decade. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The district attorney snatched up the folder, flipping through the pages. His hands trembled as he read the documents: bank transactions, wire transfers, secret meetings, case dismissals. This can't be real," he muttered. Denise's voice was like steel. "Oh, it's real." Caldwell's face twisted in fury. "This is a damn witch hunt," he snarled, turning to the jury. "You're all watching an illegal takeover of the court. These people are manipulating the system." Denise chuckled. "That's rich, coming from you." Caldwell lunged toward her, but the agents yanked him back, forcing him toward the exit. As they dragged him away, he screamed in rage. "You won't win this, Parker. You hear me? I have friends in high places." Denise watched him go, expression unreadable. Then she turned toward the stunned courtroom. "Session adjourned," she said coolly, before walking out. Outside the courthouse, the press was already waiting. The moment Denise stepped out, reporters swarmed her, shoving microphones and cameras in her face. "Agent Parker, what just happened inside? Is Judge Caldwell really guilty of corruption? Why is the Secret Service involved in this case?" Denise ignored them all, walking straight toward a black government SUV. But just as she reached for the door, a hand grabbed her wrist. She spun, instinctively reaching for her weapon now. But it wasn't an attacker. It was Richard Lawson, the district attorney. His face was still pale, his eyes wide. "You just turned this entire city upside down," he said, his voice a mix of awe and fear. Denise didn't flinch. "That's the job." Lawson swallowed hard. "You don't understand. Caldwell isn't the only one." Denise's eyes narrowed. "Go on." Lawson hesitated. Then, in a low whisper, he said, "This goes all the way up." Denise felt a cold wave of realization wash over her. Judge Caldwell had just been the beginning. Something much bigger was waiting in the shadows. And now? She had just declared war. The black government SUV sped through the streets of Manhattan, its tinted windows hiding the storm brewing inside. Denise Parker sat in the back seat, staring out at the blurring city lights, her mind racing. This goes all the way up. Richard Lawson's words from earlier still echoed in her head. Judge Henry Caldwell had been the face of corruption, but if what Lawson said was true, he was just a pawn, a disposable piece in a much larger game. Denise turned to Special Agent Tom Carter, who was driving with his usual calm intensity. "You believe him?" she asked. Carter's jaw tightened. "I believe he's scared." Denise smirked. "Good. Fear makes people honest." Carter glanced at her in the mirror. "It also makes them dangerous." Back at the federal safe house, Denise and Carter were met with two more agents waiting inside. Agents Sarah Cho and David Mills, both handpicked for this case, both just as invested in bringing the system down. Cho sat at a monitor, already pulling up financial records, court decisions, and classified files. "We've been digging into Caldwell's connections," she said, not even looking up. "And guess what?" Denise and Carter exchanged a glance. "He wasn't working alone," Mills added, tossing a thick folder onto the table. Denise opened it. Inside were photos, documents, wire transfers, all leading to one name. Her stomach tightened, because staring back at her was the face of a man even more powerful than Caldwell. Judge Alan Whitmore, Supreme Court Justice, untouchable, and, according to these files, the real mastermind behind everything. Denise let out a low whistle. Now we're really in trouble. Carter exhaled. We don't have enough to arrest him. Not yet. Cho's fingers flew across the keyboard. We might. She pulled up a security camera feed. A grainy video clip played. It was from a private dinner. Judge Whitmore, Caldwell, and several high-ranking officials. The audio was rough, but one line was clear as day. Caldwell, you're sloppy. If they come sniffing around, you're on your own. Denise smirked. Guess that means we just made things personal. Mills nodded toward the screen. It also means Whitmore saw this coming. Carter clenched his jaw. And if he did? Denise's phone buzzed. A blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice came through the line. You should have walked away, Agent Parker. Denise froze. The line went dead. Silence filled the room. Mills slowly exhaled. That's not creepy at all. Denise placed her phone on the table, her mind now laser-focused. We don't walk away, she said. She turned to Carter. We go after Whitmore. Carter nodded. How? Denise smiled. We make him sweat. That night, Denise sent an anonymous email. It contained one thing. A screenshot from the private dinner video. And it was sent to every major news outlet in the country. The headline would write itself. Supreme Court Justice caught in secret meeting. What was discussed? They weren't going straight for the kill. Not yet. First, they were going to flush him out. The next morning, the media was in chaos. Every major network was covering the leaked image, speculating, questioning, digging. But Denise knew what she was waiting for. And sure enough, it happened within hours. Judge Alan Whitmore called an emergency press conference. The team gathered around the monitor, watching as Whitmore took the podium, his expression carefully composed. This is an attempt to discredit me, he said, his voice calm but firm. I have spent my career serving justice, and I will not be intimidated by baseless accusations. Denise scoffed. He's good. Mills frowned. Too good. Then, something unexpected happened. Whitmore's calm mask slipped, just for a second. His eyes flicked toward the side of the stage. Denise leaned in. The camera briefly caught a glimpse of a man standing behind the curtain. The man was whispering into an earpiece. Denise's blood ran cold, because she recognized him. That's Senator William Hawthorne. Carter's face darkened. Whitmore wasn't just protected. He was backed by one of the most powerful political figures in the country. Denise exhaled. This just got bigger. Mills muttered under his breath. No turning back now. Denise smirked. There never was. The atmosphere inside the federal safe house was thick with tension. Denise Parker paced back and forth, her sharp mind processing everything at once. Judge Caldwell had fallen. Judge Whitmore was under fire. And now, Senator William Hawthorne had entered the game. Ethan Graves, who had been silently following along, finally spoke. I hate to be the one to say it, but, he sighed. We're screwed, right? Vanessa King, leaning against the table, smirked. Only if we play this wrong. Marcus Boyd folded his arms. Hawthorne isn't just a senator. He's one of the most powerful men in Washington. If he's backing Whitmore, that means our little operation just turned into a political war. Tom Carter, sitting across from Denise, nodded. Agreed. We're not just exposing corruption anymore. We're threatening an entire system of people who rely on it. Denise stopped pacing. She turned to the team, her eyes burning with determination. Then we take them both down. Ethan blinked. Oh, sure. Easy. Let's just go after one of the most untouchable politicians in America while we're at it. Denise smirked. Exactly. Vanessa grinned. I like her. The next morning, the team's research had paid off. Cho, the tech expert, pulled up a series of documents onto the monitor. Turns out Hawthorne and Whitmore go way back, she explained. Campaign donations, private meetings, hidden transactions. The senator made sure Whitmore climbed the ranks. Denise leaned in. And in return, Cho clicked to the next slide. Whitmore shut down cases that threatened Hawthorne's interests, she said. Whistleblowers, lawsuits, investigations, all dismissed before they could touch the senator. Ethan let out a low whistle. So Whitmore was Hawthorne's personal shield. Marcus nodded. And Caldwell? Just another pawn they used. Carter rubbed his chin. If we can prove Hawthorne pulled the strings, we can make sure he falls with Whitmore. Denise smirked. Then let's get proof. They needed Hawthorne to slip up. Denise knew the senator would never say anything incriminating over the phone. But in person, that was a different story. Marcus pulled up a security feed from a luxury hotel in D.C. "This is where Hawthorne meets his closest people," he said. "No press, no cameras, just power brokers and their secrets." Denise tapped the screen. "Then that's where we go." Ethan sat up. "Wait, you mean, like, physically go there?" Denise grinned. "You're catching on, counselor." Ethan groaned. "Why do I even ask?" Vanessa chuckled, checking her gun. "Road trip, anyone?" That night, Denise and Marcus infiltrated the hotel, disguised as staff. Ethan, dressed in a sharp suit, played the part of an anonymous lobbyist, while Vanessa posed as his assistant. They moved through the ornate hallways, keeping their eyes on the private suite where Hawthorne was meeting with Whitmore. Inside, the senator and the judge sat across from each other, voices low but firm. Denise, listening through an audio device, felt her heart race as she heard Whitmore's voice. "They've already turned the press against me," the judge muttered. "Caldwell was a fool. But this is different." Hawthorne exhaled, swirling his expensive whiskey. "Then we control the narrative," he said smoothly. "The press follows the scent of money. Give them something juicier, and they'll forget about you." Denise glanced at Marcus. They needed something bigger. Then, Whitmore dropped a bomb. "What about Parker?" he asked. "She's still a threat." Denise froze. Hawthorne's voice lowered dangerously. "Not for long." Marcus's fingers tightened around his earpiece. "We need to get out," he whispered. "Now." Denise didn't argue. They slipped out of the hotel, their minds racing. Ethan and Vanessa met them outside, concern written all over their faces. "What happened?" Ethan asked. Denise exhaled. "They're planning something." Vanessa's eyes darkened. "Something like what?" Denise clenched her jaw. "Like eliminating me." Ethan's face paled. Marcus muttered, "Damn. I like this hotel too." Carter's voice crackled through their earpieces. "We have a problem," he said urgently. Denise felt a chill crawl down her spine. "Talk to me, Carter." The agent's voice was sharp, clipped. "Hawthorne just made a phone call, and you're not going to like what he said." Denise exhaled slowly. "Tell me." Carter's voice came cold and serious. "They put a hit out on you." Silence. Then, Vanessa cracked her knuckles. "Well," she muttered, "guess we're the ones hunting now." Denise grinned. "Let's make sure Hawthorne regrets that call." The city skyline glowed as the black SUV sped through the streets, but inside, the atmosphere was ice cold. Denise Parker sat in the back seat, her mind razor-sharp, her pulse steady. "They put a hit out on you." Carter's words from earlier still echoed in her head. Whitmore and Senator Hawthorne weren't just trying to cover their tracks anymore. They were playing for blood. Vanessa King, sitting beside her, loaded a fresh magazine into her gun, her face unreadable. "All right," she muttered. "Who do we kill first?" Ethan Graves, gripping the steering wheel, let out a groan. "Could we at least pretend to have a peaceful option before jumping straight to murder?" Marcus Boyd, sitting in the passenger seat, smirked. "Nah, too late for that." Denise finally spoke, her voice calm, controlled. "We're not running," she said. "They want me dead? Fine. Let's see them try." She turned to Marcus. "Pull up Hawthorne's network. Who does his dirty work?" Marcus tapped a few keys on his tablet, scanning through private security firms, underground enforcers, and offshore accounts. After a few seconds, he found it. "Bingo," he murmured. "Senator Hawthorne doesn't use regular hitmen." He turned the tablet around, revealing a classified intelligence file. The Orion Group, a private black ops organization made up of ex-military, ex-intelligence, and ex-law enforcement mercenaries. Vanessa let out a low whistle. "Damn, he really called in the big guns." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Of course he did." Denise smirked. "Good. That means he's desperate." Marcus frowned. "How do you figure?" "Because Hawthorne could have sent anyone to kill me," Denise said. "But he used his most elite assassins. Which means he's running out of time." Carter's voice crackled through their earpieces. "And if he's running out of time," he said, "that means we still have an opening to bring him down." Denise nodded. "Exactly." Vanessa stretched. "All right. So what's the plan?" Denise's eyes darkened. "We turn the hunters into the hunted." They needed bait. And Denise was the perfect one. Marcus, Ethan, and Vanessa set up a meeting, leaking false information that Denise would be traveling alone to a government facility outside the city. They planted fake documents, fake security logs, and even hacked into Hawthorne's surveillance network, making sure the Orion Group saw exactly what they wanted them to see. Denise, Meanwhile, prepared for the inevitable ambush, she strapped a bulletproof vest under her jacket, checked her sidearm, and ensured she had backup within striking distance. Vanessa grinned, checking her sniper rifle. This is gonna be fun. Ethan sighed. Remind me to never make you mad. Marcus chuckled. Too late, counselor. Denise glanced at Carter. Tell me you have eyes on them. Carter's voice came clear and sharp. They're coming. Denise smiled. Good. The Orion group moved like ghosts. 3 armored SUVs roared down the isolated highway, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, 7 elite mercenaries sat in silence, their faces expressionless, their weapons loaded. Their target? Denise Parker. Their mission? Eliminate her before sunrise. As they neared the designated ambush point, their leader, a man known only as Cole, spoke into his comms. All units in position. A series of confirmations crackled through his earpiece. Cole smirked. Good. Let's get this over with. But as their SUVs approached the target location, everything changed. A massive explosion tore through the ground in front of them, flipping the lead vehicle into the air like a toy. Before the dust even settled, gunfire rained down from the hills. Vanessa fired the first shot, taking out a driver. Marcus and Ethan lit up the second SUV, their assault rifles cutting through the night. And from the shadows, Denise stepped into the light, gun drawn. Cole barely had time to react before she put 2 bullets through his kneecaps. He collapsed, screaming in pain. His remaining men scattered, but Vanessa and Marcus took them down before they could escape. It was over in less than a minute. Cole lay on the ground, bleeding, gasping. Denise crouched next to him, pressing the barrel of her gun to his forehead. Talk, she ordered. Cole gritted his teeth. Go to hell. Denise smirked. You first. She grabbed him by the collar, dragging him toward the still-burning wreckage of his SUV. You think you're tough? She whispered. I've taken down judges. I've taken down cops. You? You're just another body. Cole swallowed hard. What do you want? Denise leaned in. I want Hawthorne's next move. Cole hesitated, then spoke 3 words. He's running. Denise's eyes narrowed. What? Cole coughed. He's leaving the country. Private jet. Tonight. Denise turned to her team. You hear that? Marcus grinned. Oh yeah. Ethan exhaled. I hate that I already know what you're about to say. Denise smiled. We're going after him. The private jet sat on runway 14 of an undisclosed airport outside Washington, D.C. It was a Gulfstream G650, sleek, expensive, and reserved for only the most powerful people in the world. And tonight, it was supposed to carry Senator William Hawthorne out of the country and out of the reach of justice. The senator, dressed in a gray tailored suit, stood near the jet's entrance, speaking into his phone, his tone low and urgent. I don't care what it costs, he hissed. Get my accounts scrubbed and my people out. This mess ends tonight. A voice on the other end spoke rapidly. Hawthorne's jaw clenched. Then make it happen, he snapped, before hanging up. He turned to his head of security, a tall, stone-faced man named Jensen. Time to go. Jensen nodded and gestured to his men, 6 highly trained operatives, all armed. The senator exhaled, glancing around the dimly lit tarmac. He was so close to escaping. So close. Until the floodlights cut out, and the gunfire started. From across the tarmac, Vanessa King took the first shot. A clean, silent bullet that dropped one of Hawthorne's guards instantly. Jensen barely had time to react before Marcus Boyd opened fire, his shots cutting through the night. Chaos erupted. The remaining guards scrambled, returning fire, but they had no cover, just the open tarmac and a plane they weren't going to board. Ethan Graves, crouching behind a fuel truck, muttered, Why are we always shooting at people? Before pulling out his pistol and firing at another guard. Denise Parker moved fast. She weaved through the shadows, using the confusion to get closer to the jet. Hawthorne and Jensen had retreated toward the plane's door, the senator's face now pale with fear. Where the hell is our backup? Hawthorne barked. Jensen pressed a button on his earpiece. We need extraction now. But no response came. And that's when Denise struck. She came up from behind, grabbing one of the remaining guards, twisting his arm, and slamming him into the side of the plane. Another guard turned his gun toward her, but Vanessa's bullet found his chest first. Jensen, realizing they were outnumbered, grabbed Hawthorne by the arm. Sir, we have to go. But before they could move, a gun clicked behind them, and a voice, steady and sharp, said. Going somewhere. Hawthorne and Jensen froze. Denise stood there, gun raised, her eyes like steel. The senator's face twisted in rage. You don't know who you're dealing with, he snarled. Denise smirked. I think I do. You're the man who just lost. Jensen moved first. His hand went to his sidearm. But Denise was faster. She fired once, hitting him in the leg. Jensen collapsed, groaning in pain, his gun skidding across the tarmac. Hawthorne stumbled back, his chest rising and falling rapidly. You think this is over? He spat. You think taking me down will change anything? Denise stepped closer, her gun still locked on him. No, she said. But it's a damn good start. Marcus, Vanessa, and Ethan closed in behind her, weapons raised. The senator looked around, realizing, finally, that there was no escape. And then, the sirens blared. A convoy of black SUVs tore onto the runway, flashing FBI and Secret Service lights. Special Agent Tom Carter stepped out first, badge raised. William Hawthorne, he called, his voice echoing through the night. You are under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder. Hawthorne's face twisted in fury. This is a joke, he roared. I am a U.S. Senator. Denise smiled. And now, she said, you're a criminal. The FBI agents swarmed in, shoving Hawthorne against the jet, cuffing his hands behind his back. He thrashed, screamed, but it was over. Jensen was hauled up next, still clutching his leg, his face pale with pain. Denise watched as both men were dragged away, and for the first time in weeks, she let out a slow, steady breath. It was done. Hawthorne was finished. The system he had built? Shattered. Ethan walked up beside her. So, we just took down a senator. No big deal, right? Denise chuckled. Just another day at the office. Vanessa holstered her gun. Drinks on me. Marcus grinned. Now you're talking. As they walked toward the SUVs, Carter stopped them. You realize this isn't over, right? He said. There are more like Hawthorne. More like Whitmore. Denise smirked. Then I guess we're not done yet. Carter sighed, shaking his head. You're going to give me gray hair, Parker. Denise patted his shoulder. At least it'll make you look distinguished. And with that, they drove off into the night. The war wasn't over. But tonight, justice had won. The black FBI convoy cut through the empty highway, carrying one of the most powerful criminals in the country, Senator William Hawthorne. In the back of the lead SUV, Denise Parker sat across from Special Agent Tom Carter, her arms crossed as she watched Hawthorne through the reinforced glass partition. The once untouchable senator sat in handcuffs, his suit wrinkled, his composure shattered. But his eyes? Still full of defiance. Denise knew that look. Hawthorne wasn't done. Not yet. And that meant neither was she. Inside the FBI field office, the air was thick with tension. Denise, Carter, and their team stood inside a secure conference room, watching as Hawthorne was processed and booked. Vanessa King leaned against the wall, checking her gun for the 100th time. So what's the play here? Ethan Graves exhaled, rubbing his temples. He's a senator. He's got more lawyers than we have bullets. Marcus Boyd pulled up a tablet, scanning through Hawthorne's financial records. The good news, he said. His assets are frozen. His offshore accounts? Seized. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And the bad news? Marcus hesitated. Then, he turned the tablet around. On the screen, a list of recent encrypted messages, sent from inside the FBI building. Denise's stomach dropped. He's calling in favors, she muttered. Carter clenched his jaw. He's got people on the inside. Vanessa sighed. Of course he does. Marcus scrolled further. Wait, this one's different. Denise leaned in. How? Marcus tapped the message, decrypting it. The words flashed across the screen. Get me out. Now. Before she finds out. Denise's blood ran cold. He's not just bribing someone, she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. He's planning an escape. They moved fast. Denise, Carter, and Vanessa raced down the hall, weaving through agents and officers. Their target? The holding cells. They pushed through the secured doors just as a man in an FBI suit was unlocking Hawthorne's cuffs. Denise didn't hesitate. She drew her gun. Freeze, she barked. The agent whirled around, his face going pale. But Hawthorne? He just smirked. Denise stepped forward. You're under arrest. The rogue agent scoffed. For what? Vanessa pointed her gun at his head. For being a dumbass. Carter pulled out his badge. And for conspiracy to commit a prison break, obstruction of justice, and aiding a fugitive. The agent stiffened. You can't prove. Marcus burst into the room, holding up the tablet. Oh, but we can, he said, smirking. I just traced your phone. Guess what? You were the one sending Hawthorne's messages. The agent's face collapsed in horror. Denise didn't wait for an argument. She turned to Vanessa. Take him. Vanessa grabbed the traitor, twisting his arms behind his back as Carter snapped handcuffs onto him. Meanwhile, Hawthorne just sat there, watching. Calm. Unbothered. Denise turned toward him. You really thought you could walk out of here? She asked, her voice dangerously low. Hawthorne leaned forward, a small smirk playing on his lips. I'm a politician, Agent Parker, he said smoothly. You really think prison bars will stop me? Denise narrowed her eyes. Yeah, she said. I do. And then, she smiled. Because I don't plan to send you to prison, Hawthorne. Hawthorne's smirk faltered. Denise leaned in. I plan to bury you. The tension inside the FBI field office was suffocating. Senator William Hawthorne sat in the interrogation room, shackled to the table, his once impeccable suit now wrinkled, his arrogance still intact. Denise Parker watched him through the one-way mirror, her arms crossed. You sure about this? Ethan Graves muttered beside her. Denise smirked. We let him think he's still in control. Then we take everything from him. Vanessa King chuckled. I like this plan already. Tom Carter adjusted his tie. Let's just hope Hawthorne takes the bait. Denise exhaled, then pushed the door open. It was time to finish this. Hawthorne barely acknowledged her as she sat across from him. He leaned back, composed, like he was the one running the show. So he drawled. Here to offer me a deal? Denise tilted her head. That depends. Hawthorne smirked. On what? Denise slid a thick folder across the table. Hawthorne didn't open it. Tell me what's in it, he said. Denise smiled. Every dirty secret you've ever tried to hide, she said. Every bribe, every offshore account, every backdoor deal. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. Denise leaned forward. Here's the fun part, she said. Right now, the press only knows about the corruption. But if I hand this over... She tapped the folder. They'll know about the murders. Hawthorne's fingers tensed against the table. You have nothing, he said. Denise smiled. That's what Caldwell said, she murmured. Right before we dragged him out in cuffs. Hawthorne's eyes darkened. Denise sat back. You have two options, she said. You talk. You give up every name, every account, every deal. She folded her hands. Or you rot in a hole so deep that even your rich friends won't remember your name. Hawthorne was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed. Denise didn't blink. You think you've won, Agent Parker? He said, shaking his head. You think this ends with me? Denise smirked. No. Then, her voice turned ice cold. But it starts with you. Hawthorne's smirk faltered. Denise stood up. Take your time, Senator. I'll be back when you're ready to start begging. She turned to leave. And then, the power cut out. The room plunged into darkness. And the gunfire started. Outside, the FBI office erupted into chaos. Gunshots ripped through the halls as masked men stormed the building, taking down anyone in their path. Vanessa King flipped a desk for cover, firing back with deadly precision. Marcus Boyd ducked behind a filing cabinet, returning fire as bullets whizzed past him. Ethan Graves, completely unarmed, grabbed a chair and muttered, I hate my job. Denise Parker, still inside the interrogation room, hit the floor as bullets shattered the glass mirror. Hawthorne grinned in the dark. Looks like my ride's here, he mused. Denise cursed. She grabbed him by the collar and slammed his head against the table. Not today, she hissed. Hawthorne groaned, dazed. Denise moved fast, unholstering her weapon. She kicked the door open and fired 2 shots, taking down the first black-clad mercenary stepping into the room. More rushed forward. Denise grabbed Hawthorne, dragging him out into the hallway as Vanessa and Marcus fought their way toward her. Any idea who the hell these guys are? Marcus shouted. Vanessa reloaded. Mercenaries. Probably ex-military. Ethan, still crouching behind a desk, yelled, Why does everyone want to kill us? Denise didn't answer. She had one mission now. Get Hawthorne out alive. Because if these guys were here, that meant someone even bigger still wanted him breathing. And that was worth knowing. They fought their way to the garage, bodies dropping as the firefight raged around them. Carter pulled up in a black SUV, doors already open. Get in, he shouted. Denise shoved Hawthorne into the back seat, sliding in beside him. Marcus and Vanessa followed, still firing as Carter floored the gas. The SUV screeched out of the garage, bullets pinging off the sides as they disappeared into the night. Inside, Hawthorne was silent. Then he laughed. Denise turned toward him, gun still in her hand. "What's so funny?" she asked. Hawthorne smiled. "You think you just saved me," he murmured. "But all you did was keep me alive long enough to meet the real devil." Denise's stomach tightened, and she knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. The black SUV tore through the empty backroads outside D.C., its engine roaring as Carter pushed it to its limits. Inside, the team sat in grim silence. Denise Parker kept her gun trained on William Hawthorne, who sat handcuffed in the back seat, still wearing that damn smirk. "You think you won," he said, his voice smooth, confident. Denise's grip tightened on her gun. "I don't think, Senator." "I know." Hawthorne chuckled. "Then why am I still breathing?" Denise's jaw tightened. Because he was right. Someone had just sent a kill squad to wipe out an FBI field office just to get to him. But instead of finishing the job, they pulled back. Why? Because someone needed him alive. Denise leaned in, her voice cold as steel. "Who's pulling your strings?" Hawthorne met her gaze, unbothered. "You're smart, Parker," he said. "But even you can't stop what's coming." Denise smirked. "Try me." Hawthorne's eyes glittered with something dangerous. "You ever heard the name Jonathan Riker?" The SUV went dead silent. Even Carter, who never reacted to anything, gripped the wheel tighter. Ethan Graves let out a breath. "No. No way. He's a ghost." Marcus Boyd swore under his breath. Vanessa King just shook her head. Denise? Her blood ran cold. Because Jonathan Riker wasn't just a name. He was a legend. A shadow who had manipulated politics, business, and military contracts for over 20 years. Every major scandal, every rigged election, every high-profile assassination, somehow, his name always surfaced in the whispers. But no one had ever seen him. No one had ever caught him. And now? Hawthorne was saying he was the one behind everything. Denise exhaled slowly. "Riker's a myth." Hawthorne smiled. "That's what they want you to believe." Vanessa muttered. "This just got worse." Marcus checked his gun. "How do we even fight a guy who doesn't exist?" Hawthorne leaned back, fully in control now. "You don't," he murmured. "You run." Denise leaned closer. "Not my style." Hawthorne grinned. "Then you'll be dead soon." Before Denise could push further, Carter's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then cursed. Denise's stomach tightened. "Talk to me." Carter's jaw clenched. "We've got company." Denise turned, looking out the rear window. And then, headlights appeared. 3 blacked-out SUVs had turned onto the road behind them, accelerating fast. Marcus checked his gun. "Let me guess. Not FBI." Vanessa loaded her rifle. "Nope." Ethan sighed. "I really hate my life." The first SUV pulled up alongside them, and the passenger window rolled down. A masked gunman leaned out, an automatic rifle in his hands. Bam! 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 Bullets ripped through the SUV's side panels, shattering the back window. Ethan yelled in panic, ducking. "I really, really hate my life." Carter yanked the wheel, swerving onto a dirt road. Denise turned to Marcus. "Take the shot." Marcus didn't hesitate. He rolled down the window, aimed, and fired. Bang! The gunman's head snapped back as his body tumbled onto the road. Vanessa fired next, hitting the driver. The first SUV spun out, flipping into a violent roll before slamming into a tree. 1 down. 2 more to go. The second SUV rammed them from behind, nearly making their vehicle spin out. Denise grabbed her radio. "Carter, get us somewhere we can fight." Carter gritted his teeth. "Hold on." He yanked the wheel, sending the SUV barreling into an abandoned warehouse lot. The second and third SUVs followed. The moment they stopped, Vanessa and Marcus jumped out, weapons raised. Denise shoved Hawthorne out of the car and pressed her gun to his skull. "One move, and I'll put you down myself." Hawthorne smiled. "You wouldn't dare." Denise didn't blink. "Try me." The mercenaries from the other SUVs spilled out, surrounding them. 12 men, all armed, all trained. Their leader stepped forward, his mask covering his face. "Agent Parker," he said, voice distorted. "You have something our employer wants." Denise smirked. "Let me guess." "Hawthorne." The masked man chuckled. "Not exactly." Denise's pulse spiked. Then, he reached up, pulled off his mask, and Denise felt her world tilt. Because she knew that face, not just from files, not just from whispers, but from her past. Her voice came out low, sharp, disbelieving. Riker. Jonathan Riker smiled. Hello, Denise. Silence settled over the warehouse lot. Ethan froze in place. Marcus's gun didn't move. Vanessa? She stiffened. Denise? Her mind raced. Jonathan Riker was real.